In today's video, I'm going to show you how to stretch watercolor paper. Here is a pack of new 16 by 20 watercolor paper. Now you want to make sure that you have a wood surface, but not one that's laminated like this, because it won't be able to, once it dries, it just won't adhere to the surface. I've tried it and it just always peels off once it's dried. So what we're going to use is some craft paper with glue or gum on the one side of it, some scissors. You might need a paintbrush to help. If you don't have a sponge, just kind of make sure the water's even on your paper. And to wet the paper, I got a big tub. So this one is probably bigger than I need for the paper I'm using, but you definitely need a tub that's wide as your paper, so at least one side of it could fit in. And you don't need the entire sheet of paper to fit in the tub, because what you'll do is just dip one end of it in and kind of do a rolling dip where you're immersing just a part of it at a time. So also there's two sides to the paper, so look at the decal, and usually the side that's facing up when you get the paper is the side that you want to paint on. And as you can see how it's trimmed in the back, so that's going to be the back side. I don't know how much that matters, but there are two sides to the paper, so just something to keep in mind. Alright, so here's how I dip it, and then I'm just going to keep dipping and then pull the other side. Just make sure that it's totally immersed. Alright. Yeah, make sure there's no air bubbles that's keeping part of it above the water. And then when you take it out, you might even want to just hold it with one hand so that all the excess water can run off. Okay, it's going to be quite heavy, so now I'm just laying it down on my board. And I'm going to go ahead and measure out. This is something that you might want to do before you dip the paper in water. It's probably a better order. But you want to make sure that each piece of tape you cut is larger than the side that it goes on, because you want to make sure it's completely cut or completely covers each of the sides. So if that makes sense, you don't want any gaps around the edges. And I'm doing this on my floor. I have cut this plywood. I got this maple plywood from Home Depot. And maple's good because it can soak up large amounts of water without it warping. Some cheaper pine, especially a really thin plywood, this is like almost an inch thick. So it's going to be able to take a lot of water abuse. So I just took the sponge to even out and also make sure there's no air bubbles in my paper and no wrinkles. That's very important, because we're trying to get it straight. That's the whole purpose of this. And also to be able to have the water take copious amounts of water and paint and watercolor paint and not buckle. So I'm actually going to use a towel to wipe off any excess water. I've had some experiences where if I don't wipe off the excess water on the gummy tape, then the paper will actually stick several inches underneath the paper. So then I have to rip the paper off. So it's good to not have excess water on your tape. You can do it two ways. You can either dip it like I did this time, or you can just take the wet sponge over the gum, and because it needs to be wet, but it doesn't need to be soaking wet. In fact, you don't want it soaking wet. Okay, and then another thing that you need to make sure is that you're not laying your tape down in a way that it's on an angle where, well, you want it pretty even covering. I usually do about a 1/2 inch of the edge of the paper. But you want to make sure that it's covered and that you're not leaving one corner uncovered, because like I said, that would be a problem with stretching this. What we're going to do is it's going to soak it up, all this water, and then as it dries it will tighten like a drum. And then I let it sit for at least 24 hours before I actually paint on it. So as you can see, I'm just dipping the paper in just like I did with the paper, and then but I am wiping off any excess water. It's sometimes helpful to like just touch it at one corner. As you can see, this one's done wrong, so I have to pull it up. It was crooked, so touch it at one corner, and then before you start taking it all the way, touch it to the other corner to make sure that it's going to hit the corner and not the side of the table and be crooked. So here you can see I try to get it as even as possible and about a 1/2 inch. If it's a larger paper, I would even do more, like an inch, because it's just a larger surface area that you're trying to hold attention on. Now this was from a block that has black gum on the sides, and it's still warped from just copious amounts of water. So one of the benefits to pre-soaking it and stretching it is that you're not going to get that buckling and rippling and puckering of your paper. Like this one, I just held down with masking tape, and even though I brushed some water on it, the masking tape just couldn't hold it all. That one actually was done on these two are straighter because I pre-stretched them like the ones that I'm showing you now. This one wasn't. It was from a block, a watercolor block, and even it is a little bit buckled. Alright, so you might see some wrinkling going on here. Now don't be too alarmed. If you have really sponged from the inside out to each corner and made sure you got all the air pockets, this is probably going to come out. If you, like I said, did push as much of the wrinkles out so it's completely flat when you were taping it down. So here it is when it's dry, and you can see it's already flattened out perfectly. So I hope this video helps you, and if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please leave a thumbs up.